It's Parshas Ve'era, and this is the beginning of the Makkos, the plagues, that of course is the beginning of the Gula from Mitzrayim. All the Nisim and the Niflos HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to perform on behalf of Klal Yisrael, turn the world upside down, turn the universe upside down in order to build to free the Jewish people, so they can finally go out as part of the fulfillment of the promise made to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, primarily in Bris Basarim by Abraham Avinu. We can go out and become Or Goyim, a light to the nations, and fulfill our tafkid, our purpose, and the mandate for Ma'aseh Bereshis. And one of perhaps the most fundamental misunderstandings of Jewish history and of the Exodus story is, in fact, the whole process of the Makkos itself was going on historically, what took place, not in terms of the events, not in terms of the Makkos. The Makkos, of course, they're listed right there in the Chumash, but in terms of the impact it was having on the Jewish people. And it all begins with the question that if you ask the average person why we eat matzah, Leil Seder, that's the mitzvah deraisa, and the rest of the week we don't eat chumetz, the rest of the week, all the days of Pesach, and you ask them why we have to eat matzah. So, because, as the Torah points out, there was no time to bake bread, although it's difficult to understand because, of course, making chumetz is not an issue of time so much. The problem is keeping it from becoming chumetz. It takes about 18 minutes for flour and water to become chumetz. Who did that 18 minutes at some point in time? In advance of leaving Mitzrayim, certainly bread was being baked before, after, maybe the wheat. But the main reason why it's brought down that we weren't able to have bread, we baked matzah instead, was because of the fact there wasn't enough time to bake bread. And if you ask again the average Jew, the average person who's familiar with the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, why there wasn't enough time to bake bread, and they'll tell you because the Jewish people had to leave Mitzrayim very, very quickly. We had to leave in a very big rush. And you ask them why we had to leave in a very big rush, they will tell you, as most people understand, because we know the Jewish people were holding a Memtes Sharitum, the 49th level of spiritual impurity, and had we stayed there for 1 second longer, we would have gone down to the Nun Sharitum, the Nun Sharituma, the Tuma, right? And that would have resulted in complete spiritual obliteration, and therefore the Jewish people would no longer be redeemable at that point in time. There'd be no Jewish people, no Jewish history, at least not from those descendants. And we had to leave quickly, so therefore Kodesh Baruch Hu rushed us out. We had very, very quickly to avoid. Just think about it for a second. 3 million Jews plus 3 million Erev Rav leaving Mitzrayim takes a lot of time. How do we not go from Memtes Sharituma to Nun Sharituma just in the amount of time it takes? So some people get lost along the way. Maybe that was the reason for the 4/5 that died at Makkos Choshech. But that's the reason why. We had to avoid going down to Nun Sharituma, the lowest level possible, the point of no return, and therefore we were rushed out, and therefore we baked matzah, because that's all there was time to do, and we eat matzah today as a commemoration for what took place back at that point in time. That's the average explanation for the entire matzah story and Yetzias Mitzrayim, which of course can't be true. As we mentioned before, baking bread is no big issue. Baking chumetz, you don't have bread, a perfect loaf of bread, but just making chumetz, just go to any matzah factory, any place where they bake matzahs, and watch the panic and the anxiety as people rush to not bake bread, just to get the matzah to be kosher, takes a tremendous amount of work and energy and speed, primarily. So, baking bread's not a big deal, even back at that point in time. Just mix the flour and water together and let it rise, right? But more importantly, the question becomes, why weren't the Makkos having an impact on the Jewish people? And if there was, then why did we have to leave so quickly? And the bottom line question is, do we eat matzah because there wasn't enough time to bake bread on the way out? Or was there not enough time to bake bread on the way out so we would eat matzah? In other words, matzah was just the result, incidental reality that was created because of the situation, the matzah, or was matzah the guiding factor? Was matzah the reason why it all had to take place? And if that's the case, what does matzah actually, what does it actually mean? And what's the message behind it? And there's obviously a tremendous amount of drashas, so that's basically, we won't go into all those details right now because I put that in my book, Redemption to Redemption, the very deep and intricate connection between the holidays of Purim and Pesach, which B'ezras Hashem is about to be published right now. And the first part is about Purim, the second part is about Pesach. You can get it online from my online bookstore, which is, or from me directly, personally, if you have contact. www.36thirtysix, no hyphen, .org, right? And there's an online bookstore. The book is called Redemption to Redemption, and it will come out, B'ezras Hashem, in actual book form this, hopefully this month, B'ezras Hashem. But anyhow, the lesson begins. He says the following thing: V'hinei, ze omek hakavana masha amar hakasuv ki garshu mimitzrayim. He's in the middle of a discussion over here, but we'll just pick up what's the part that's relevant to write down to the Makkos, right? So that's what it says, that the Egyptians actually, they threw the Jewish people out of Egypt, and it says, V'lo yachlu lismameya, they could not tarry there any longer, they could not stay there any longer, we weren't allowed to even wait a second longer, the Egyptians pushed us out of Mitzrayim quickly, etc. V'harei kasha, right? It's a kasha, we have a question over here, l'chora, theoretically, right? So the Leshem writes, V'hinei, ze omak hakavana masha amar hakasu. This is the underlying basis of the intention of the verse written in the Chumash, Ki garshu mitzrayim v'lo yachlu lehismameha. Right? That the Egyptians, they threw us out, and we were not allowed to stay a second longer. They pushed us out, like HaKadosh Baruch Hu said at the end of last week's Parsha. Right? This comes later on, Parshas Bo. Right? V'harei kasha l'chor ma'od. There seems to be a very big question in all of this. Right, the key Hare Yiru Mitzrayim Az Lisakev Sham Od Eze She'os Ad Shechir Lehem Tzeladerech. Right, that it seems from the Egyptians that we were not allowed to stay a second longer in order to prepare, provisions to take along the journey with us. That's the way it seems from the Mitzrayim, from the Psukim over here, right? Umasha Kaspa Meforshi Bezeh Shahayar Hachi Bazom Meshum Shalo Yichnuz Bashar HaChamishim, the Nun Shari Tuma, and based upon those Meforshim who explain the reason why we had to leave so quickly from Mitzrayim is not because the Egyptians pushed us out per se, but because Hashem pushed us out, because we could not go down to the 50th level of spiritual impurity. That's the whole thing. It's a kash, it's a steer, it's a contradiction over here, right? Hare, Laniz Daiti, according to my humble opinion, says the Leshem, Yeshar Lamar came. We cannot say like that. Ki arei adarabba. It's just the other way around. How can we go according to these Meforshim who say that the problem is going into Nun Shari Tuma, which seemed just the opposite was the case. Meaning what? Who shnispatel as kol keiches hatuma makava kol. Right? Because what's going on over here? The Makkos are increasingly revealing the hand of God in history. This is Gilui Shechina. Even though it's a Mitzrayim, this is HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealing himself more and more with each plague, right? So as a result of that, what's the net result of HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealing himself? That the koiches of Tumah, the reality of spiritual impurity, that's becoming weakened, not stronger, not maintaining a status quo over here, right? Aidei Gilui Shechina, Kamosh Yasav, as it says in the Torah itself, L'chol Bnei Yisrael, Lo Yicharatz Kela L'shana. It says that when the Jewish people were leaving Mitzrayim, even the dog didn't bark or stick its his tongue out in any way at the Jewish people. And the dog symbolizes Amalek, the koiches of Tumah, and it's an indication of where the world was holy at that time. V'harei asa shvati in Beloheim, and the Torah itself says that Hashem we judged their gods, right? V'harak es b'chareihem, and killed their firstborn. Hashem killed the firstborn of the Mitzrayim and all people associated with the Mitzrayim. If that's the case, just think about it for a second. Logically speaking, the koiches of God is revealing himself more. The koiches of Kedusha, the reality of spiritual purity, is becoming stronger. It's like a seesaw. When one is stronger, the other one is down. When one is up, the other one's down. Right? So therefore, if the koiches of Kedusha are becoming stronger, it means the koiches of Tumah have to become weaker. So if by the time we leave Mitzrayim, the koiches of Kedusha are so incredibly strong, it means the koiches of Tumah have to be incredibly weak at the same time. Right? So it says that's the case. Lo shach dvarim le'acher. So the more ella rak al sof shibuda v'techilas gulusa. Right? That pshat of not falling down to nun shari tuma can only be said, it's only relevant to be said at the end of the shibud and the beginning of the gula. Not the end of the gula, but the beginning of the gula, which means before Makkos done, before the first plague of blood. Because had Hashem not stepped into history and interfered in the process in advance of Makkos done and began and sent Moshe Rabbeinu down to Mitzrayim at that time, early, 191 years early, right, and began the first plague, which is the Gili of Shechina at that time, then the Jewish people were in danger of falling to the Nun Shari Tumah. But once the Makkos began, and each Makkah, basically every plague is an increased revelation of God, the Jewish people are leaving the Mem Shari Tumah. The first plague is the first step away from the Mem Tesh Shari Tumah, right? And it gets better. Gets better and better as time goes on, the entire time, right? Had the gula not begun at all that time, then for sure, like the Haggadah says, we'd still be slaves to the Egyptians back in Mitzrayim because we become totally assimilated and lost to people completely. As lo yelehem tikana chas v'sham, because then the Jewish people have no tikana, no rectification, God forbid, ki niknasu b'mentas medregas, Tumah, right? And because then the Jewish people would sink down to the lowest levels of Tumah, right? But once Makkos done begin and all the Makkos fall after that, the Jewish people are climbing a ladder out of Tumah into the realm of Kedusha, right? As it says in the Zohar, Chadosh Reish Parshas Yisro, Aval Me'acha Shehinchel Gula. Once the Gula began, Shehu Bechilas Makkos, went at the beginning of the Gula, says the Zohar, at the beginning of the Makkos, right? Shayu Yud Beis Chodashim. It took 12 months for the Makkos to play themselves out, for the Gula to finally complete itself, basically, at that point in time. Brings more sources, as it says also in Edios, in the Gemara. Mishpat HaMitzrim Yud Beis Chodesh, the judgment of the Egyptians was 12 months. The Chaim B'Seder Olam, likewise it says the same thing in Seder Olam, that the judgment of the Mitzrim is 12 months, which means they're getting weaker, and you can see them getting weaker, right? Because Paro and the Egyptians are the physical projection in the world of the spiritual reality of Tumah. So where they go, wherever they're holding, that's where Tumah's going. So if the proponents of Tumah becoming weaker, it means the koiches of Tumah becoming weaker at the same time. Hinei. Mi'az harei haya marchil yiris hasitra acher mishluta sa v'yada mi'az lahala b'yirida ach yirida. So in fact what's going on over here is that from the time the plagues begin, that the Sitra Achra, right, the Satan, whatever, right, he's becoming weaker. He's having Yerida after Yerida. He's being broken in the end, right? Ubefrat Achra shepaska hashibud Shehuma Rosh Hashanah, and specifically once, because the Makkos began in Nisan, and they kept going the entire year, but the Jewish people still went to work for the first few Makkos. Things didn't change that much at the beginning. Makkos blood, Makkos dam, the Tzfardeh, Kinim, right? Only by Rosh Hashanah, Tishrei of that year, did the Shibud finally end. The Jewish people no longer had to show up for work anymore after Rosh Hashanah, and that's clearly showing the Koiches Tumah becoming very, very weak at that time. As it says also, other sources, right? Ma gam b'chodesh Nisan, right? Nisan b'leil Rishon shel Pesach, and even more so, the first night of Pesach, the 15th of Nisan, Shehaisa calls Sitra Achra Kefufa, Chavush, right? And the Sitra Achra on Leil Pesach and Mitzrayim was completely bent and broken and had no koich whatsoever. Ad she'yomed l'spatel legamrei, until it's finally ready to be destroyed completely. By Leil Seder, the first Leil Seder in Pesach night, the Sitra Achra was hanging on for dear life by a thread, and it could have easily have been destroyed, which of course would have been Yemot HaMashiach, right? Right? עד שיהיה עומד להתבטל לגמרי, ואם כן אין מקום אז לשליטת שער הנון חס ושלום. If that's the case, we come back to the original question. The Sitra Achra is completely broken by this point in time, so there was no room to say that by Leil Seder, by the time we left Mitzrayim, it was relevant at all to come close to the Nun Shari Tuma. So we did leave Mitzrayim quickly because we were afraid of falling further and therefore becoming irredeemable. That was all the way back to previous Nisan by Makkos Dam. But once Makkos Dam began, that changed the whole situation. The Jewish people went Aliyah after Aliyah after Aliyah, to eventually we left the Mem Tashari Tuma completely, and by Leil Seder at that first year, that night, we were Kadosh. Whoever was remaining after Makkos Choshech, right, the 9th plague, when they were wiped away, 4/5 were wiped away, the 1/5 remaining were Kadosh. They were already at a very, very, very high level that they left by Yevram, the Torah tells us. So therefore the question comes back. So then, why did we leave so quickly? And why, therefore, do we have to have matzah instead? Why can't we just have bread all year round in the end? So the next paragraph basically just discusses whether or not there is a 50th level, whether 49 is the highest or the lowest you can go in spiritual impurity. He explains why. It's a machlokas amongst different commentators. Some say yes 50, some say no 50. There's not much of not much of a practical difference, because once you get to Mem Tashari Tuma, basically it's about, you fill the complete level. A person succeeds, unfortunately, to become literally Mem Tashari Tuma completely. He's already irredeemable at that point in time. So it's a side discussion. There are definitely, things to learn out from that. But the main thing is over the point that's relevant to us right now. But the Makkos, he comes back and he says, "V'nachzor le'inyan." Let's come back to our original discussion. Because even according to those commentators who are holding that there are 50 levels of spiritual impurity by the Sitra Achra Gamkein, it's impossible to say Shazehu Hakavana Mashikasav V'lo Yechulus Mameya. We can't say that the reason why they could not delay a little bit of time in Mitzrayim to bake bread was because of the Nun Shari Tuma. It was not knocking at our door anymore, right? Even according to those who hold this 50, 49, 50, but it's the same shot. We're out by that point in time, right? Shukadesh lo yiknu l'shar hanun chas v'shalom. Ki az b'leil rishon shel Pesach lo haya makom od la'shlitus atuma klal. Because by Leil Seder, there was no koich to the koich of Tuma at all at that point. Ela hakavanahu. This is a big chiddush. This is a hugely important point, not just in terms of understanding the Seder, not just in terms of understanding what took place back in Mitzrayim, but in order to understand what history since that time has been about. I mean, this is exactly the opposite of what people think. What does it say? Right? Just it's the opposite over here. Ki mishum shehofia at HaKadosh Baruch Hu or kedushaso al Yisrael, since the HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealed His light to the Jewish people in Mitzrayim that night, Leil Seder, as it says, Ani v'lo saraf, Ani v'lo malach, I myself, Hashem says, carried out Makkos Bechoros, the death of the firstborn. So it was clear. It wasn't clear until now. It's certainly clear at this point in time that Hashem is behind all of this. The tremendous Gil of Shechina, Kemosh Yosav Bal Haggadah, right? As the author of the Haggadah himself writes, Nigla Leia Melech Malchim Lach Mekadosh Baruch Hu, that Kadosh Baruch Hu, the King of Kings himself, revealed himself to the Jewish people, and even Paro had to be moide that it was the hand of Hashem in the end. L'chein, if that's the case, Elo Hayu Nisak Akvu Od Reget Echat B'Mitzrayim. This is the punchline of the entire thing. Therefore, if the Jewish people delayed one more moment in Mitzrayim, as ma, then what? What's going to happen? Hayamisbatel kol sitra achra kula mikol v'kol. The problem wasn't the Jewish people. The problem was that the Jewish people had stayed 1 second longer in Egypt. The revelation of God taking place at that time would have been so powerful to destroy all evil completely. Evil was in danger of obliteration. Ra, Tuma, impurity was in danger of obliteration at that point in time. So we had to lead to save us. We had to lead to save Paro. We had to lead to save the Mitzri. We had to lead to save what? What else, right? So what's the problem over here? Right? Then, if you batel the Sitra Achra, evil's gone from the world. There's no free choice anymore. There's no Bechira. Shehu Asiba and Mechuvenes, right? And that's the whole point of Ma'aseh Bereshis. The point of Ma'aseh Bereshis, of creation, is free will. Free will requires a choice. Choice requires good and evil. Destroy evil is only good. There's no free will anymore. So therefore the Jewish people to leave Mitzrayim to preserve Bechira, to preserve free will. So we're eating matzah to commemorate, not that we were about to fall to the Nunshar Tumah, not because there wasn't enough time to break bread because we had to protect ourselves, but because we had to protect the koiches of Ra, the koiches of Tumah. There's exactly the opposite. Why would I want to do that? I mean, after all, what the Mashiach, the Gemara says, this is exactly what's going to happen over here. Right? So, Ki Mitzrayim haya az harosh l'kol haklipa. Every generation, there's always going to be one country specifically, if not a few, but one specifically that's going to represent the koiches of evil in that generation. So Mitzrayim wasn't back then. If you destroy Mitzrayim, basically destroyed the koiches of Tumah at that time as well. Today, you look around where the most amount of immorality, where the Mitzrayim of today would exist, because Egypt is a location. Physically, Mitzrayim is a concept, which we'll get to later on. Mitzrayim is Meitzu Yam, which means the constriction of the Nun Shari, because the gematria of Yam is 50. It's also on the book Redemption to Redemption. You get more details over there, right? So to destroy Mitzrayim is to destroy and that would have obliterated the Yitzhahar completely. There would have been no room left anymore historically for free will. And that's the reason why the Jewish people could not stay a moment longer. Not because we're holding a Nun Shari too many more at this point in time, but because we're so kadosh, there's so much light of Hashem in the world, to keep that light of Mitzrayim any longer, as it will leave with us, means to obliterate the Mitzri, which means to obliterate the Sitra Achra and evil, which means to obliterate Bechira, which sounds like a good thing. Why not? So, why not, in the end? It says, so therefore, as it says in the Torah, the Egyptians, they strengthened themselves, they were strong about it, to push the people to send them out in the land. Right? Does that sound like the koiches of Tumah are strong or weak? The Egyptians come to Paro and say, Kulanu Mesim, we're all dead people over here. Clearly the koiches of Tumah are bent and broken and on the verge of destruction by the time the Jewish people leave Mitzrayim. Right? So therefore we delete Bechipazon. The kachuchu that says b'sham b'chipazon kedei l'ten adayin eza kiyum l'ram. He says it here specifically. It's not my words. In order to be able to give kiyum to the koiches of Ra, to evil itself, kedei she'yamakom l'bechira l'asiba mechuvenes and izkileel. Right. So it's not what people think, and it's not the way things actually happen. But rather, we eat matzah to recall the fact that we did leave quickly from Mitzrayim to save the koiches of Ra in order to save free will. Right? So the question becomes, so why? Why was it not acceptable? At some point in time in history, it will be exactly this way. In Yemot Mashiach, the Gemara says the Sitra Achra will be destroyed, free will be gone, and therefore it's just premature over here. So why can't it happen over here? So the lesson goes on to explain in very specific detail, because this didn't happen because of the Jewish people. The Geula, Hashem did not step into history in order to save Klal Yisrael because of the fact they were crying out for the Geula. Because of the fact that they knew that there was something wrong and they wanted to fulfill the promise made to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. That wasn't what happened over here. They allowed themselves to assimilate. They were allowing themselves to become side by side with the Mitzri. They were they gave up completely on the Geula. They weren't asking for it. life was good, life was bad, whatever, Kodesh Baruch Hu had to step in on behalf of the Haftacha. For the sake of Abraham, was probably, talking to Kodesh Baruch Hu, begging Kodesh Baruch Hu in Shemayim, and Yitzchak and Yaakov, please save my descendants before they disappear completely. So we never chose the Geula, says Elisha. We never chose the Geula. We never asked for the Geula to come. We never chose the Geula for ourselves. Rather, it was imposed upon us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu started it. He got it going because of the promise he made to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and for the sake of history. So we never chose the Geula. So therefore, Geulas Mitzrayim was heaven-made. It wasn't a product of our own bechira, our own free will. And because we never chose it, we had to have time to choose it for ourselves. For thousands of years, we have been selling Pesach, and the Haggadah says every Jew must look at themselves as if they too left Mitzrayim. Because we are. Because we never finished the job. I mean, that's why 4/5 died in Makkos, because they didn't choose Geula. They chose to stay behind. They wanted to stay behind Mitzrayim in spite of the miracles taking place and the Moshe Rabbeinu leading them and Aaron Cohen. They chose to stay behind. So Kodesh Baruch Hu killed them in Makkos. And the one that left, at least they didn't choose to stay behind. That was their schus. But choose the Geula? They complain and they confess the entire way. They want to stay in the Midbar. They reject Eretz Yisrael. For 3,320 years now, we have been trying as a nation to choose Geula. So as long as we have to choose it, the Bechir remains. So therefore the matzah stares out at us from the Seder table every single year to remind us of a choice that was never made. We had to leave Mitzrayim early to save evil. We had to save evil. I had to leave Mitzrayim early to save evil? Yeah. You know why? Because you did not do your homework. We haven't done our homework. We haven't developed ourselves into Geula choosers. We simply accept the status quo, and every year the matzah stares us in the face and says to us, what's it going to be? Are you going to choose Geula this year and get your family to do so, and your friends to do so, and the nation to do so, that all this insanity can finally end? And so once again, we simply accept the status quo. I mean, Kate's Yamin, 190 is the Gematria Kate's Hayamin those days. The final redemption is the redemption, the completion of the redemption from Mitzrayim, because we left one foot in and one foot out, and we've been leaving Mitzrayim ever since. And we're still doing it. It might be America today, or Europe, whatever, but we're still leaving Mitzrayim because we haven't chosen Hashem, and we haven't chosen Geula. And if you don't choose Eretz Yisrael as your homeland, and you yearn for it, you will get up and show mercy to the Jewish people. Because your servants want her stones. They cherish your dust. That's all part of choosing the Geula. And the matzah reminds us that we had to leave early. We couldn't stay there any longer in order to empower the koiches of Ra, so we could have free will, because we didn't choose back then when we should have what we should have. The Geula. And the way of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov lived for the Geula Shlema. And the Makkos were all the preparation. And as the Kodesh Baruch Hu is megaling himself more and more, the choice becomes more obvious, and therefore the Bechira becomes less so. And therefore the schar for doing so becomes less so. So we have to wake up. We have to realize that what's taking place in Parshas Be'era and Parshas Bo and all these Parshiyot is the beginning of our history, not just in terms of where we originate from as a nation, but where our lives originate. We have to look at ourselves as if we too are leaving Mitzrayim by making a point of choosing Geula individually, and then on a family level, and then on a communal level, and eventually on a national level, and all the Yisurim and all the Tzuras will stop, the Gili will take place. We will finally complete Geulas Mitzrayim, and we'll make the words, Bayamahu, Yeshem Echad Shmo Echad. On that day, God will be one, His name will be one, and peace will finally reign on all the earth.